The List Aggregator web part is an app for SharePoint Online based on the new SharePoint framework. What it does is simply aggregate or roll up data from multiple sites and multiple site collections. So if, for example, you have multiple project sites with tasks and milestones and risks and so on, and you wish to display all the upcoming milestones or all the tasks assigned to me, you can easily do that with the List Aggregator. Another key feature is the flexibility that it gives you to create your exact layout. So using existing controls, you can really Lego style build your exact required display. But it's not just about display. You can also add functional menus. So you can add global menus or you can add per item menus. Let's see a live demo now. Okay, so I have this site called List Aggregator and it has three subsites, sub 1, sub 2 and sub 3. For this example, these are like project sites. And let's have a look at one of the subsites, sub 1. So it has team tasks list, which is a task list, okay? And there's also project milestones, which is another list, and all these sites have similar lists. And now what I want to do now is show all the tasks or all the milestones from all my project sites in one consolidated view in the top level site. So let's go back to that List Aggregator top level site. And let's add the List Aggregator web part to the page. I have here an empty new experience page, so I'm clicking edit and let's add our web part. So it's called List Aggregator. This is it. So first thing we need to do is open the web part tool pane to configure a data source. So here it is. So first thing to do is to define our query that will be used to retrieve items from all subsites. Now we do not require you to write your query or use any sophisticated query designer. What we're doing is actually using a built-in mechanism that SharePoint already has. As you all know, every list has views, and a list view is actually a query definition. A list defines which columns we want to retrieve, which filter we want to apply, groupings, sorting, item limit, and so on. So actually a list view is a query definition. So what you have to do here to define your query, the one that will be used by the List Aggregator, is simply select a site or type a site, then select your list. In this example, I'll use a task list, and then select the view that will be used as the query definition. And I'm going to use the all tasks. You can select a view or create a view in that list. So this view will be used to retrieve items from multiple sites. By the way, this exact list that I'm using only as a query definition doesn't need to include any data. I'm not using it as a data source. I'm using it only as my query definition. Next thing I'm going to do is create a data source. So first thing I need to do is give my data source a clear name. So let's call it project tasks. And then I need to configure my aggregation scope. And we have these following scopes. So you can aggregate from the entire site collection. You can aggregate from a specific site or from a specific site and its subsites, and maybe just from specific lists in the current site. And in our example, I would like to aggregate all the tasks from all the subsites, so I'm going to use specific site and subsites. And the starting node, the starting SharePoint site is currently the current site, which is good to be, but I can change it. So for example, if I want to aggregate from another site collection as my root point, I can just put the URL here. And since I do want to start from the current site, it offers me maybe I want to start from any subsite, so I'm good with the current site. Next, I can also further limit my aggregation scope by name pattern of the list that I want to aggregate. I'm not going to use it, and the same goes with site title that I can use to limit my aggregation scope. I am going to use the list type because I want to aggregate only tasks. I can, by the way, aggregate multiple types of lists. It's okay. You can aggregate, for example, calendar and tasks together because it makes sense. Both have due date. And finally, I can also limit my aggregation by content type. Last thing I need to do is to make my data source active. And that's it. We have one data source. And by the way, everything is live. So as soon as I have a data source, I see the results immediately. Now, if I want to aggregate from multiple site collections, it's okay. You can add more data sources. All the data sources will be aggregated and the result will be combined together into one view. So all I have to do is close the tool pane and save the page. And here we have our web part. It aggregates tasks from several sites. It has some built-in functionality like these global menus and the ability to add an item directly from here. You got paging control here. You can of course sort by any column, and you have some item level actions such as view item, edit item, or send item by email. If I click this one, for example, I'll get the email with some columns from the item. So the web part comes with some built-in functionality. In the next session, we'll talk more about configuring this layout and changing it by selecting other controls and even getting to adding your own scripts to change the functionality of these per item actions or global actions.